What's going on, everybody? Tom Quiet here, live and amplified. I hope you guys are having a great day. I just wanted to jump on here really quick before we get started with this podcast and just thank everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys are ready. We are getting ready to really kick this up daily, releasing daily podcasts. Today's podcast, we have a really cool guest all the way from Sydney, Australia, a young artist by the name of Dani Young. She lives in Sydney, and she tells her story from going between living in Sydney to living all the way out in the outback, how she discovered country music, and even how she ended up going to Nashville. It is a really cool story. I hope you guys like it. Let's get it. For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, we are live and amplified. So let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
So, sitting here with Dani Young, what got you into music? Let's start off from the beginning. What got you into music?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I've been involved in music for as long as I can remember. Mum tells me that as soon as I was, a baby in the bathtub, I'd be singing at the top of my lungs. So it's something that's just been with me since I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
But I started playing the guitar when I got a bit bored of the school choir.
Okay.
I think I was a little too advanced for the choir, so I took up the guitar and joined the guitar club. And that's when my love for singing and playing guitar and writing my own songs really started.
Nice. I kind of have an idea given the picture you have hanging behind you, but who are some of your musical influences?
Well, this picture behind me rotates on a daily basis,
Oh, okay.
well, not daily, on a monthly basis with a few different artists. But
Okay.
I grew up listening to very mainstream music.
Okay.
Even though I'm a country singer now,
Uh-huh.
I grew up loving the Beatles and the Stones and the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac. And I would just listen to all this sort of mainstream rock pop sort of music. And when I started getting involved in country music about 5 years ago, I was given a little bit of an education by a well-known Australian country singer who got me to listen to a lot of the amazing leading ladies of country music. And so I would listen to Emmylou Harris, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, Rhonda Vincent. And I just realized that there are amazing female voices and powerful stories in country music. And that's what really drew me then into the country music genre.
Okay. What you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what got you into country music? Like, what was the...
Yeah, it's an interesting story because I'm a city girl. I grew up in Sydney, one of the biggest cities in Australia. And I decided after I finished university that I just didn't know how to make music a career. So I thought, I'm going to give up on music. I'll keep it as something I love, but I'll take a job as a journalist. So I packed up everything I own, moved by myself to the center of Australia, right smack bang in the center on a map, middle of the outback, to a small country town called Alice Springs, which is near Ayers Rock, Uluru. And as soon as I moved there, on my very first day of work at a radio station, I met a country singer who had all these platinum records on the walls.
Oh, wow.
And he said, "What are you doing? You should be doing music." And he heard me sing that night at the pub. And he heard me and said, "No, you should be singing country music." And from there, within 12 months of moving to this small country town and giving up on music, within 12 months, I was in Nashville recording my first country album.
Wow. Nice.
Came back to Australia, got a record deal, and started touring all around the country. We got nominated for the top Australian Country Music Awards. And I was like, wow, okay, I think I found my calling.
Awesome. What was your experience like when you came to Nashville? What did you come there strictly to record, or what was that?
Yeah. So we had myself and Warren H. Williams, the country singer I met in Australia, an Aboriginal country singer.
Okay.
Billy Yates had reached out to us.
Okay.
Billy Yates wrote Choices for George Jones and is well known as a singer himself.
Yep.
And he reached out to us and said, I'd love to be involved in music sometime. And we said, well, actually, we're in the market to make a record. Why don't we just come over to Nashville?
Okay.
So we set it all up via Facebook,
Okay.
turned up in Nashville and went and recorded at Larry Baird Music Studios. And we just had the most amazing musicians come in and play with us. We really weren't expecting it, but they'd all just played on George Strait's album the week before and went to
Sure.
play on Garth Brooks' album the week after. We're like,
Wow.
how do you get this caliber of musicians? But it just happens in Nashville that you just get amazing people to work with. So we were over the moon with the experience in Nashville.
And have you been back since the initial time?
I haven't.
No?
I'm actually planning on doing another Nashville trip later this year. I've
Okay.
decided I'm working towards a solo record,
Uh-huh.
and I think I want to go back to Nashville and do a lot of songwriting. And,
Okay.
you know, a lot of really great songwriters live and work in Nashville. So I thought I'll head back to Nashville for a few weeks. I'll try to set up as many co-writes as I possibly can and try to just take my music to the next level. And so I think that's what Nashville's all about. It's about improving your craft, working with amazing people and taking everything to the next level. You don't necessarily go to Nashville to get discovered and become the next big star. That doesn't usually happen like that. But Nashville is a great place to learn and grow.
Yeah, it's especially a good place to go and build your network. That's
Absolutely.
one thing that's one thing I've been to Nashville a couple times, and just every time I go there, it's like, all right, why am I not here? Like, and then I go and look at like apartments and whatnot. And it's like, oh, that's why I'm not here. But
expensive over there.
Yeah, it's really expensive to live in Nashville. But you know what? As a musician, I'm sure it's really worth it, because like the amount of experience you'll get just going through and playing an open mic, the amount of exposure you'll just get from it, it's like, okay, for a musician, it's worth it. For me, maybe, but not quite yet. So, how has since you recorded your first album, what's your creative process kind of like as you're writing?
I think every songwriter works a little bit differently. And for me, I find the best time to write songs is while I'm driving in the car. I like to turn off the radio, and while I'm in that enclosed space with no distractions except for the road ahead, that's when ideas come to me. And for me, I find the words and the melody come at the same time. A lot of people like to just write all the words first and then do the music later, or they come up with the music first and words later. For me, it happens exactly at the same time. And so I write it all in my head while I'm driving, and then I get home and I pick up the guitar and I'm like, I think I know how this goes. And within about 5 minutes, I'm like, yep, got this figured on guitar, and done.
That's exactly, that's awesome. And you said, when you're just getting ready to release a music video, or it's already released, right?
Yeah, it's out now.
Oh, it's out now. Where are you writing wise? Are you writing for an album right now, or are you recording? Where are you at with that?
So I'm in the middle of the process. I have recorded a bunch of songs a while ago, and I've released my first two singles from that. It was an EP at the time, but I've been working on it for a little over a year now, and I keep just adding things to it. So I think it's going to be an LP by the time it comes out. But the way the music industry is at the moment, it's very much a singles climate. So I'm hoping to release each song separately as a single and then release the whole record at the end of this year.
Gotcha. That makes, and so as you've been kind of recording this, or when you sit down to decide, okay, I'm going to record an album, do you usually write specifically for the album, or do you just say, I've got all these songs and song A, B, C, D work for this album? So I just like, what's your kind of process when you finally sit down and say, okay, I'm ready to go into the studio again?
Well, I think the process evolves over time. So for me, I have one album out that was that
The,
duet album we did in Nashville with
uh,
myself and Warren H. Williams. And then I've got my new LP coming out. And so when it was time to do the LP, it was my first solo record. So it was a little bit of just, what are my best songs? How can I just showcase myself to the world now as a solo artist?
yep.
So it was, yeah, a bit more of just a collection of my best songs at the time. But now that's, I'm just rolling out those singles at the moment. So I'm already thinking about the next record.
Okay.
And the next record I want to approach with more of a theme to it, more of a holistic creative process. So I think I've got a few songs I've written already that really stand out to me as being great songs that reflect me and that my audiences really love already because I've been singing them already.
Yeah.
And I think I would be then trying to fill the gaps of that record. So I'll be writing to it as well as using what I've already got to make
Okay.
a combination that feels whole and feels like it all goes together.
Nice. I think that's a very common thing. Like you have a list or you have a bunch of songs that you've already written and like a few of them work together. And then it's just a matter of filling out the necessary holes to make it a complete project, which is something because we've been doing I've been doing this live and amplified thing for about 4 years now. And I never really had any experience with music beforehand. So this has been like a real learning experience about how musicians, what their creative process is. And I'm starting to find that common loop. So it's really cool, especially as I get to sit here and talk to people like yourself. I get to learn more. And especially now, since we've started doing a lot more international interviews, I get to see how things work, not in the US, but in like Australia, the UK, places like that. So it's really, really awesome to.
Yeah. And it's fantastic how the internet has changed the music scene
Yeah.
so much that it's so easy for people in Australia, in the US, in the UK to all join up to
Yep.
work together. You can write a song with someone in a different country just
Yep.
by using Skype.
Yep.
And you can organize to go to Nashville and do a record just by, sending a Facebook message.
Yep.
It's really great. And similarly, I now have fans in America, in various countries around the world, just because they've been able to hear me via Spotify or
Yep.
YouTube or Apple Music. So yeah, it's really great. It's a great time to be a musician because you've got the benefit of being able to reach people all over the world that previously only big record labels had the opportunity and the money to do that. But now we can just do it for free with social media.
Yep. And like when you'd brought up that you went to Nashville or you talked to a guy and just went to Nashville to record your album, I was like, oh, I forgot. It is that easy nowadays.
Absolutely.
So that's one good thing that the internet has brought us, just making things so much more accessible.
Yeah.
So, one thing we really like to do is to help younger musicians. We want to like make sure we're cultivating the next generation of musicians. So we like to make sure like during every podcast, we leave them with some valuable information that will help them succeed or make sure they don't do something stupid, don't do anything stupid. So my question to you is, what advice do you have for younger musicians?
Right. Well, I'm still in the early stages of my own career, but there is some advice that I would give myself and give to younger artists that are feeling a little bit confused and lost in the music environment, not knowing how you get ahead, how you sort of start making progress, because it can be very unclear at times to know what you need to do. So my advice is opportunities are going to find you no matter what you do, but you need to make sure that you've done the hard work and the preparation so that you are able to say yes to those opportunities when they come along.
Yeah.
Because if an opportunity comes and you're not quite ready to take advantage of it, you might not get another opportunity.
Yeah.
So you've got to be ready. You've got to be doing the hard work so that when it comes, you can say yes and go forward.
What's something that you've been able to learn through your career so far that you either wish you would have known when you first started, or something you think people that are just starting out should know?
I think there's definitely a bit of a myth about the music industry that, yeah, I think it's started because of all these talent shows we see on
Yeah.
TV with Idol and X Factor and The Voice.
Yep.
We have this myth that you just need to be good and someone will find you and they will make you a star. And that's really not the case
No.
anymore. The majority of artists are totally independent artists. They're
Yep.
doing it all for themselves. So to have that mindset of, someone's just going to come along and find me if I'm good enough doesn't really work. You've got to be your own person that discovers yourself. You've got
Yep.
to do your own marketing. You've got to be your own agent, your own manager. So you've got to do all the business side of things as well as the creative. It's not enough to just have a great voice or one great song.
Yep.
You need to also know how to, spread the message out there to the world, because even if you are very lucky to get a big record label come along, things have changed so much with the internet and social media marketing that a lot of the time, even the big record labels aren't quite sure what they're doing or
Yeah.
how to make a big difference. And an independent artist who's really connected with their audience online can have so much more success because of that connection and that grassroots growth.
Mm-hmm.
More so than, just a big record label can just snap their fingers and make magic happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a huge myth that someone's just going to discover you and you'll be an instant star. That's just, I don't think it's how that works anymore.
No, it's not. And it's even if somebody does discover you, you still have to be able to have the longevity to keep, like, they may be able to come in and you may have that one song, but if all you have is the one song,
yeah,
then you're pretty
absolutely.
much stuck. You have to have the longevity, you have to have the creativity
And the drive.
because there's a lot of artists here in the US, and I'm sure same in Australia, where they get one major hit that makes the waves and then you never hear from them again because they just
How many people have won The Voice or Idol or Got Talent, and then you never hear of them again? They're sort of famous for that 1 year that they won, and then they're gone and can't even remember their name.
Yep.
And that's because when they got discovered, they had, a big label helping them, but they didn't know how to then carry on themselves and to drive it and make sure it keeps going.
Yep.
They were just waiting for it to come to them. So
yep.
yeah, you got to keep driving your own ship.
Yep. They were getting supported through whatever the deal was, whether it was they were getting like a tour, because I know a lot of these shows, they have like a tour or something that they go on shortly after the show completes. And then after that, it's just kind of like, oh, what do I do now?
What do I do now? Exactly.
So yeah, that's very interesting. And then you also got the artists that sometimes you get the artists that don't win, and then they become bigger names than the ones that do win, which is always interesting.
They had the brains to be able to use the opportunity and the drive to keep working at it.
Yep. The one before you jumped on here, I was looking through your website, and the one thing that I noticed that you've been playing a lot of music festivals, at least last year or in the last few years. What's the music festival scene like in Australia?
Well, I've been mostly playing in the country music festival scene in Australia. There's a few different types of music festivals in Australia. There's sort of the big country music festivals that are well-funded, large crowds come out. You get all the big names.
Yep.
And then you have a lot of smaller community-style country festivals. And you get a lot of bush balladeers is what we call them, sort of singer-songwriter, traditional songwriter style.
Gotcha.
Australian folk artists. You get a lot of the audience comes along in their caravans. And it's a smaller community, but it can also be a very exciting time too to travel out to those really small towns and just meet a whole bunch of different people. So we've kind of got the two different ends of the spectrum, the really big, huge stages, the lights, the multiple days, and then you've got the small community style ones, and both of them are really fun to play. It can be quite tricky to start getting involved in music festivals. I've heard a lot of people ask, like, how do I get on the bill? How do
Yeah.
I get to perform at them?
Yeah.
And a lot of the smaller community festivals do have walk-ups where, members of the audience or punters or whoever
Yeah.
can just come along and get on stage and sing a few songs.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to start, by
Yeah.
getting seen, or a talent quest or that sort of thing. But especially with the bigger festivals, it's a lot about who you know,
Yeah.
how much of a profile and a buzz you've built around your brand and your music. So it can be very tricky, especially when you're just totally independent like me. But you do the best you can.
Um, what's the what what's the music scene like in general in Australia? Because I've been talking to a few people, but it's very, they talk about like their pockets, their genre pockets. Like, so if they're a hip hop act or if they're like a metal act, they talk about their pockets. But like from your perspective, what's the music scene like in Australia? Like, or at least the independent scene. Is there is there a lot of support for it, or from your perspective, is there a lot of support for it, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know how to compare it to international markets.
Okay.
It certainly seems like in America there is huge support for country music. It's one of
Yeah.
the dominant genres of music in the US. In Australia, country has started gaining a bit more popularity, but for a long time, country music was considered a dirty word,
Okay.
and people would just be like, ooh, country.
Yeah.
So it's become a little more cool in the last decade or so. But yeah, there's nowhere near like the huge crowds you see at
Yeah.
the American country festivals. But there's definitely a strong following for country in
Yeah.
Australia that's growing all the time. You do find in some parts of Australia, a lot of independent artists are struggling a lot at the moment.
Yeah.
A lot of uh, artists that would be touring, with a big band have really had to cut down to touring solo and
Uh-huh.
touring fewer locations.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I probably don't have the expertise to give like a full
Okay.
analysis on
Gotcha.
how it's happening, but
No
it
worries.
does feel like um, audiences are buying less CDs these
Uh,
days, and
do you think
they're
that's
definitely,
because it's so easily accessible, like on Spotify and stuff, or do you,
yeah, I think it's particularly one thing that surprised me is that even older audiences are not wanting to buy CDs anymore, because
okay.
when they've bought their new car or their
Yeah.
new caravan, they don't even have a CD player in them.
Oh, yeah.
So they're buying CDs, but they're just sitting on the shelf collecting dust. And so they've decided we're not buying anymore because we can't play them. We don't do anything with them. So yeah, there's an element of that. I also have been finding that a lot of audiences in Australia seem a little more reluctant to spend money on tickets to music. There's a
Really?
little bit of an expectation that live music should be free,
Okay.
um, which is a bit tough.
Yeah.
But we make the most of what we've got, and that's just what I've been noticing in the
Yeah.
industry. But
Gotcha.
yeah, can't
Is
exactly say why.
yeah. Is vinyl making a resurgence in Australia? Because I know, like here in the
Yeah,
U.S., it's making a huge resurgence. And
I
go ahead.
I did see a figure last year, and I'm not sure if it was Australia or worldwide,
Uh-huh.
that last year was the first year that vinyls outsold CDs.
Yep. I,
Um, so vinyl has been making a bit of a comeback. I think it's more of a collector's item.
yep.
I'm not sure that there are a lot of people with vinyl record players at home. I think they just buy the vinyls and put
Yeah.
them up on the wall and they look nice.
Yep.
But yeah, we have noticed that trend.
Nice. Because I've even noticed, like, more independent acts will find the small mom and pop pressing like there'll be like the like a little small record pressing shop that'll make you like 20 vinyls for how much it ever it is, and then they'll sell them at their shows, and it'll be more like a collector's item. And
Mm,
because you bought the vinyl, they'll give you the digital downloads for free. Like, well, not for free
mm,
because you're paying for it, but that's one thing I've noticed is people are starting to press their own vinyl. They're either pressing their own vinyl or getting it through getting it from somewhere, and then they give them the digital download, so they still have that physical copy. And I think that I think independent musicians should really try and figure out how to make that viable for themselves,
mm.
because to me, as a lover of music, yeah, I want to support you, but the CDs, I don't really have anywhere to play it because like my computer doesn't have it. It doesn't even have a disk drive. My car doesn't have a disk drive. So it's like, okay, where do I play this? And by buying the vinyl, I'm still supporting you. And it's like this collector's item because then I can get it signed, framed, and put it
Mm,
up. So that's just something that I've noticed was vinyls, like even on the independent scene, is really starting to make a resurgence. And I
mm.
didn't know if you had seen the same thing in Australia.
Yeah, definitely noticed a similar thing. Even in sort of your commercial CD shops or
Yeah,
music shops, they always have vinyls of brand new albums there as well. So even sort of, commercial major label artists are doing vinyls as well.
yeah,
I haven't personally seen any small boutiques where you can do a very small run, like
yeah,
20 vinyls.
yep,
Um, it is often a bit of a larger number, which can cost you a lot as an artist to
yeah,
outlay. But yeah, it's definitely a great idea for artists to think about.
yeah. So are you currently still living in Sydney, or are you still in
Mm.
would you say Alice Springs?
Yeah, so I lived in Alice Springs for about 3 years,
Okay.
and living in the center of the outback becomes a little bit expensive when it comes to touring
Okay.
because flights in and out of,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
desert are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So after 3 years of living in the country, I moved back to Sydney, my hometown.
Okay.
So I'm living in the big city again, and I'm finding it much easier to then travel to all different parts of Australia and share my music.
Okay. Now, for touring acts in Australia, is that the common thing? Is they fly to the next city over, or do you still have the acts that'll get in the car and drive off to the like? This
It
is just
definitely,
because I don't know the layout of Australia and how everything kind of works, but
so Australia is very, very big.
yeah,
Um, it is definitely cheaper to get in the car, and definitely wherever is viable to
mm,
drive to, a lot of artists do. But some parts of the country can be like a 5-hour flight away.
okay,
So to drive it would be several days
yeah,
driving just to get to the next town, which when you're on tour, that is pretty expensive too,
yep,
just in terms of people's time and petrol and, keeping the band on a retainer.
yep,
So we do a bit of a mix. When it's
okay,
somewhere that's a very significant drive,
yeah,
we will fly instead to the major city. Or often we'll fly to a major city and then get in the car and then drive for a few hours to that
okay,
smaller town that we're
yeah,
traveling to. So it's a bit of a mix, but I've always been so jealous of how in America bands can get in the car or the tour bus and you drive like 1 hour at the next city and you can do a big tour, a big show, then
yeah,
drive another hour or 2 hours and you're at the next major city.
yeah,
Australia's major cities are so much more spread out than that.
yeah,
It's really not viable.
yeah. And that was when I just kind of a little background on me and where I'm at. I'm in the mid. I live in Central Texas, which
Mm,
it's a pretty big state, and it's about an hour and a half to the next major city. But before I moved here, I lived in New Mexico, and that was about a 3 hour drive to any major city. It was like in the middle of the desert, didn't have much going on, and it was like 3 hours to get anywhere. So I can only imagine. what your drives must have been like if the 3 hour drives to get to the next major city was.
Yeah. I just looked up on Google Maps then. Australia is more than 10 times bigger than Texas.
Oh wow. Okay.
So
Nice.
yeah, it's pretty far to get
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah. Understood. Um, so let's start talk about your music video. Why did you choose this specific song to do the music video on?
Well, I this song kind of chose me more than
Okay.
I chose this song. I as we were talking about how great the internet is earlier, I responded to a Facebook post from a mate of mine who's a record producer who said he was just looking for a demo singer to come in the next morning and record something. So I put my hand up and he said, "Yep, perfect, come in tomorrow." I didn't really know what I was going in to record.
Okay.
And it turns out he was doing up a new version of the REO Speedwagon classic song, Keep On Loving You.
Okay.
So I just, had a listen. I'd known this song since I was young. It's something that I would always hear on the radio. So I knew the song. I loved the song. So I went in and just, did my version of it. And he sent it off to the music publisher that he was working with that owns REO Speedwagon's catalog.
Okay.
And they loved it. And
Oh
they
wow.
sent it off to the New York music publishers that own the global rights to
Yeah.
REO Speedwagon's catalog. And they loved it as well. So suddenly what was a demo turned into the real song that was getting released.
Oh wow.
And so, yeah, when that happened, it was full steam ahead. It was like, okay, this is the next single now. It's this song. We've got the backing of the music publishers. We've got the backing of a label. And we decided we had to make a music video to go with it to help release it to not only Australian radio, but,
Yeah.
internationally as well. So, yeah, we just made a music video and I'm really excited to have it out.
Nice. What was the thought process when were you the creative force behind what people see on it, or?
No, so my mate, who is the record producer, also filmed the music
Okay.
video, and he was the one that came up with the ideas for
Okay.
what should be in the video. And I guess it makes sense because he's been the driving creative force behind the new arrangement of the song and piecing it all together. So he wanted to be able to match that sound with the vision that he had
Hmm.
in his head. So yeah, he came up with the idea of not only having some very beautiful performance scenes of me singing the song,
Yeah.
but to have a few different couples as actors throughout
Oh,
the music video. And because this song's really about some distance between a relationship and then deciding, despite everything, we're going to come back together, I'm going to keep on loving you forever and ever
yeah.
type of thing.
Yep.
So we've got some actors in it that are couples going through different situations and in the end sort of just deciding, no, I still love you, and yeah, reuniting.
Wonderful. And how long or how many days did it take you to shoot the music video?
Well, my involvement, I was in two different settings for
Okay.
my performance, my sitting there singing the song.
Yep.
And so that only took me a few hours to
Okay.
film, probably 2 or 3 hours to film that. And then the actors were filmed on a separate day. That probably only took a couple of hours as well. So yeah, filming time plus, some editing, some
Yeah.
back and forward ideas before the final sign off. But it was all pretty quick. It's not a major, Hollywood production that
Yeah.
takes weeks of shooting. It's all fairly quick.
So it's very DIY, get it very, very low. Not you didn't have a big crew, none of that stuff. So I
No.
understand. Yeah.
What I have noticed in the sort of 5 or so years that I've been in the Australian country music scene is that a lot of the film clips, even from the biggest stars in
Yeah.
Australian country music, tend to be done by the same few film production houses that do all the music videos, and they do it on a very small crew. They
Mhm.
only really need 2 people in terms of the filming, plus you
Yeah.
might have a hair and makeup artist there. Maybe you'll have some extras involved in the video, but in terms of the crew that's shooting it and lighting it, you don't really need that many people. It doesn't need
Mm,
to be a crew of 10, 20 people. You can do it with 2 or 3 people. A lot of them in Australia, though, are one-man crews.
yeah. Especially on the independent scene, that's a pretty common theme here in the U.S. as well. It's one, maybe two, and if you're really lucky, you have that third person. But
Yeah.
for the most part, you don't. It's usually just the camera guy, and he's making sure everything's lit properly, everything's shot right.
Mm. Yeah. And I think if the creative concept is strong enough, it doesn't really matter how many people you had in the crew. Um, People just want to see a video that's engaging, that's, connects to them, connects to the song. They don't really care so much about it looking like it cost $1 million.
Yeah,
It just cost, you don't want it to look cheap,
no,
certainly, but I don't think you
yeah,
need to spend a lot of money to get something that looks really good
yeah,
and is really engaging.
yeah. As long as it captures their attention and it doesn't look like you just threw it together in 5 minutes, and like, I mean, to me, it also ultimately comes down to the song. Like, if the song's good, the music video, like, I can forgive bad lighting or a
Mm,
bad shot, but I can't forgive a bad song because we're watching a music video.
yeah.
So, was this your first music video you've ever shot or been involved in, or?
No, so with my first album, the one I did in Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
we created 2 music videos for the 2 major singles from that record before we released the whole record. And then in terms of my current record, I released my first solo single about a year ago,
Okay.
and I was heavily involved in that music video creative process. I directed it myself.
Oh wow.
I came up with the concept. I wrote the storyboard of every shot that we want. You know, pulled together all the extras, costume, themes, locations, everything. I was heavily, heavily involved in that, and my inner control freak was very happy with that
Yeah.
arrangement. So it's been quite a contrast this time to
Yeah.
sort of just turn up and do what I'm told.
Yeah.
Um, I don't hate it either.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to just be like, I don't have to spend hours and hours thinking about this. Someone else wants to do that, which is cool because I trust them.
Yeah.
So I get to just turn up and sing and look pretty, I guess.
Yeah. It's a
That was, the other end of the spectrum, but both were fun experiences.
Yeah. It's always good when you trust the person that you're working with.
Oh, yeah.
How did the music video that you were directing and had a very hands-on approach or a lot of hands in? What did you take away from that video that helped prepare you for the second music video? Is that
Well, I think what would have helped me for this video,
yeah?
because I wasn't involved in the creative aspect as such, I was very much aware of how I look on camera
Uh-huh.
and what sort of clothes are going to look good on camera, what's going to look more flattering, what angles suit me.
Yeah.
I've discovered I don't really like my side-on profile, but if I'm sort of 45 degrees, I don't
Yeah.
mind that look. I know that if I'm sitting down, if I squeeze my arm in close to my body, it might look a little fatter than if I put it a little further out from my body. So you
Yeah.
just get used to the angles and ways to position yourself to try to look your best,
Yeah.
and ways you can look at the camera and engage and move your body. So I think I really was able to use that in this music video. When people go and watch it,
Yeah.
there's one scene where I'm sitting down and I've tried to position myself so I'm not just, all crumpled up and looking
Yeah.
small and like a blob.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, I'm standing up and I'm moving around and singing, and I'm really using the space coming into the camera, using big hand actions. And that was because I had that experience of seeing how I look on camera
Yeah.
and getting an idea of what works well and what I could improve on.
Yeah. It's always nice when somebody has that experience and although they don't know 100% how something comes across on camera, they have an idea that, okay, if I do something like this, it may not look good, or they're just have more, I guess, spatial awareness is the word I want to use.
Yeah.
um
I think you're willing to take more risks when
yeah.
you've had that experience behind you. You go, I'm just going to try something because this might look cool.
Yeah.
And you just feel free, like you can do it. You're not so worried about, oh, I might mess this up or I might look stupid. You're like, well, if I look stupid, they'll just cut this out. But
Yep.
let's give it a go. So we've got one version of this.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
so we were working with my shadow on the wall in this music video. And I was like, what's going to look cool? What can I do with this shadow to really, play it up a bit? So I tried, different hand gestures and walking in close to the shadow and further away from the shadow and different angles. And it was just all about trying a bunch of things because I'm now comfortable on camera. I'm a
Yep.
bit used to what I look like on camera. So I'm not feeling self-conscious and, oh, am I smiling enough? Do I look pretty? I'm more like, what's something cool I can do? What's, something we can try?
Understood. Yeah, that's always good when you have that confidence to kind of go in, and then also the knowledge of knowing what, or the knowledge of an idea, uh, or having an idea of what you look like is always a good thing to have, especially when you're going to be starring in your own music video. Um,
Yeah.
so that's always good. Where what's so we've been talking about your past a lot, or we've covered a lot of your past and what you've been doing. What's the plan moving forward for like the next year? Where do you see yourself going? What do you want to do?
So my next year, I certainly for the rest of 2020,
Yep.
I want to be releasing singles of all the songs that I've recorded and, get this LP out there with music videos to go with all those singles.
Yep.
But at the same time, I'm looking towards my next record. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm planning a Nashville trip to go
Yep.
and write some songs in a different environment. I'm also trying to ramp up my touring a bit more, maybe focus on some social media marketing as well to build my profile and awareness of who I am and what my songs are as
Yep.
well. So there's lots of things to do. As an independent artist, you have to wear a lot of hats.
That is
But
a fact. That is a fact.
one thing that I have noticed is when I was writing the songs for my current record, I was definitely in a less happy mindset. I'd, been through a few difficult situations, and as artists, we often find it a lot easier to write from the sadness, the misery, the anger, the sassiness.
Yeah.
So definitely there's a bit of that going through my songs. And now that I've moved on to the next stage in my life,
Yeah.
I'm still singing these songs that reflect who I was 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I now want to focus on writing some songs that really reflect who I am now and, a bit more positive, a bit more, maybe fun to contrast some of my sadder songs. So yeah, I'm definitely looking in the overarching scheme of my body of music. What do I need to write to fill those gaps? And currently I've got this style of song from the current record, well, the record that's about to come out.
Yeah.
And so for the next record, I want to fill the gap that this record didn't cover.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm definitely looking at the bigger picture and what I need to do to get where I'm going as an artist, because I can see where I want to be in 5-10 years time. So I just am keeping that in mind and doing what I need to do to start building my way there.
Gotcha. Where's one place that you haven't had a chance to play that you really want to play? Like either a country, a city, venue?
I really want to play at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville.
Okay.
That is like the ultimate songwriter circle space.
Yep.
And there have been quite a few Aussies, quite a few people that I know, so young Aussie country artists that have played there. So I know it's not out of my grasp, but it is definitely something on my list at the moment that I really want to be able to do. So
Awesome. I
need to get brainstorming on how I'm going to make that happen. I want to make that happen in the next 18 months.
Okay. Awesome. I never knew what, I always heard the name of the Bluebird Cafe, but I never knew that it was like this big thing that people strive to play at, or a big venue that people strive to play at.
Definitely.
The last
and
time.
I don't know if you watched the TV show called Nashville as well, but that TV show centered around the Bluebird Cafe a lot. So since that TV show came out, definitely the Bluebirds become like an internationally known place to play.
Yeah.
But
I was actually an extra on the first season of Nashville.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which scene were you in?
It was one of the concert scenes. They were looking for people. They were playing like one of the big concert scenes. It was um they were. I was living in Kentucky, and I was about an hour drive from Nashville, and I got an email saying, "Hey, do you want to be in Nashville, or do you want to be an extra in the series Nashville?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'm off Tuesday. I can make the drive." And I
Mm,
didn't get paid for it. That was kind of unfortunate, but it was just like, okay, I'll go have
mm.
fun in Nashville for a day. So
Yeah, I think they were shooting season one or season two when I was over in Nashville recording the album, but I'd known about the Bluebird since before then too.
yeah,
So yeah, it's definitely on my bucket
that's
list.
that's awesome. Definitely could probably get you in contact with some people that have played there and help you try and because I know a lot of the artists that have played there live in Nashville full time, so it was just kind of one of those things where they started showing up and there was an opportunity to go play and they kind of took advantage of it. So um but yeah, when you get ready to go back to Nashville, let us know. We'll get you in contact with people and see.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, because I know now that I know what playing at the Bluebird Cafe means, it's like, okay, because I just didn't know before and now I know. So
Yeah, it means a lot to artists from all around the world. That it's just a very special place.
yeah,
It's it's allegedly the best listening audience for songwriters who
yeah,
just really want to focus on the story and the lyrics, and yeah, that's the place to go.
awesome. When are you planning when do you want, or you said later this year for your Nashville trip, but do you have like a specific month or is that
Yeah, I'm thinking around September, October, sort of around Americana Fest,
okay?
maybe a few weeks either before or after Americana Fest, so I can, you know, do all my songwriting and then also enjoy the festival.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Um, and then what's the you said you're going there or you'd like to go there during Americana Fest. Have you ever been to Americana Fest before? Or?
No, I haven't been to Americana Fest, but every year Australia sends a few country and alternative country Americana style artists over there. So I've been very aware of Americana Fest
Okay.
and the Aussie contingency that always goes to play over there. So
Mhm.
it's been on my radar for a little while, but I've never been there. I've also never been to CMA Fest.
Okay.
So yeah, I just thought it'd be really nice to go and experience one of the big festivals in Nashville.
Yeah. That would be it's I've only been to like the week leading up to CMA Fest. I've never been to Americana Fest, but I've been to like the week leading up to CMA Fest, and even that's just mind-boggling.
Crazy.
But yeah, yeah,
I bet
um,
a lot of people in town.
yeah. Do you have, or from your first trip to Nashville, do you still have a lot of connections of people that live there, or
I have a few connections that I'll
okay,
definitely need to chase up on,
yeah,
see if there are perhaps some people I can stay with or some people that can suggest some great
yeah,
songwriters that I could work with. So yeah, I'll definitely be pursuing um, contacts from then. But I really wish I had more contacts
mm,
from that trip.
gotcha,
So that's definitely something I've learned. I think back then it was my first album. I was sort of taken along for the ride a little bit by a more experienced artist. And so they were very much saying, leave it all up to me, don't worry about a thing. And it's like, well, actually, I should have been making all those contacts
yeah,
too. And for later down the track, I wasn't thinking further ahead to when I would be solo
yeah,
and need to have all those contacts. So
yeah,
definitely that's something that I've learned that I need to, make those contacts myself.
gotcha, yeah. That's like, especially when you're in that situation, just even having a little business card, even with just your email, your name and your email, like that
Mm,
goes a long way. Just, and I think that's one thing that younger musicians definitely underestimate is even though you're just kind of along for the ride, you can still take advantage of that situation because you're there for a reason, you know.
yep. And you can't depend on anyone else because no one cares about your career the way that you care about it. And
Exactly.
the people you're working with now might not be the people you're working with even in a year's time, even in a few months' time.
Yep.
So don't allow someone else to have all the power and all the contacts and know
Yep.
how everything happens. You need to know how to run your own business as
Yep.
well.
Yep. Exactly. So as we kind of start wrapping this up, one thing we always like to ask our musicians, it's kind of become a staple in a lot of our interviews, is why music?
Why not music? I can't picture myself doing anything else. I mean, I do have other jobs besides
Mm.
music, but they're very much just something that's getting me to where I want to go.
Mm.
I'm taking jobs that work around my music career that allow me to go touring.
Mm.
So it's actually really interesting that our generation has been told, like, find a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
It's just so important to find something you love. And then when you find music, people don't really take it seriously as a
Yep.
job. And they
Yep.
think, well, you love it, so it's kind of just a hobby, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
hang on, you told me to find a job I love.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it a job, but you're
Yeah.
telling me now it's only a hobby because it's
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah. It's definitely kind of a double standard that they run there. It's interesting that you bring that up, because a couple of months ago I was having a conversation with a kid that's getting ready to graduate from high school. So I'm not quite sure what that equate to out in Australia, but basically it's like primary school before you go into university. Like,
I think primary school means something different to us over here.
okay,
Primary school for very young kids.
okay, no, this would be like 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. It's right before you go to university, like what you'd
Right.
be. Yeah.
That's high school for
Oh,
us.
okay, gotcha. So he was getting ready to graduate high school, and he messaged me and asked me he really wants to pursue music once he graduates,
Hmm.
and but he doesn't know how to go about it and all this fun stuff. And I told him, I was like, look, you're 18 years old. You don't have many financial commitments. Like, what's the worst thing you have to pay for? Car insurance, gas, cell phone bill. Like, everything else, you still live at home with your moms or your parents, and everything else is kind of taken care of. So all you need to find out what you like, your bare essentials, and then just hit the road. Like, go. Like, you're a solo acoustic act. You don't have to support a band. It's just you. Take the next 5 months when you're not at school, work all the work and save as much money as you can, and just tour until you either A, get where you want to go, or B, run out of money and you have to go back home and regroup.
Mm.
And so I need to get back a hold of it. I need to get a hold of him again and make sure he's doing what he said he'd do. But, I'm just trying to help or get people in that mindset of, you're so young, you need to start taking some chances. That,
Yeah, and it can definitely happen in different ways
yep.
For different people. I do wish that I had gone a bit more that way myself. I mean, when I was younger at university, even in high school, I would go to singing competitions. I would go in talent quests. I would then start singing in pubs, but I just never quite found my niche,
Okay.
my genre that I wanted to sing in. I was never happy with any of the songs that I'd written. It wasn't until I moved to Alice Springs and got into country music that I then felt a clear sense of purpose, and I was kind of shown a path
Yeah.
of how you make it in that industry. I do find other genres can be quite tricky, especially, pop music. How do you get a break in pop music? I don't have a clue.
Yeah. No.
It's really just luck of the draw.
Pretty.
So
Yeah.
there are some clear paths you can take, but life's very unexpected, and yeah, it happens in different ways for different people, and you don't just have to be young. Australian artist Amy Shark had her big global break when she was 32,
Mm-hmm.
and she'd been trying for 10 plus years to make a break as a pop singer. It's
Yep.
nearly unheard of for a pop singer to start their career at 32.
Yep.
But that's when she got her break. I mean, Sia had her big break when she was nearly 40, I think she was.
Yep. Yep.
So I think the rules are well and truly broken. You don't have to be, making progress from being a young 17-year-old anymore. I think if you find your calling or, opportunities later on in life, like anything could happen. Like there are no rules.
Yep. That is very true. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for giving us the time to sit down and chat. And I know it's not easy with the 17-hour time difference to find that time that works for everybody, but I think I'm really glad that we got the opportunity to sit down. And it's always a little nerve-wracking for me, especially when it's somebody that I've met just cold turkey. Like we met yesterday on Facebook.
Yeah.
And within 24 hours, we're sitting down having a full-blown hour-long conversation about your music career and where it's been, where you want it to go. And I just never know how these things are going to go. So it's always a really refreshing when things go well,
I didn't turn out to be crazy.
No, it's one of those things where it's like, well, I don't know if they'll be able to hold a conversation, because some people are just very introverted and they're not able to hold a conversation. They give you the, oh, well, and just like simple one-word answers and stuff like that. So it's always really refreshing when that happens, or when that doesn't happen.
I think for me that I have a background in journalism. I've interviewed tons of people as a radio presenter. I then have worked on camera. I've, been interviewing people in all sorts of mediums. So I kind of know how you would hope this interview would go. So I'm not just answering yes and no to your answers. I'm actually expanding.
Okay. Since we're on that topic, let's take a little detour. How did you get into radio and doing TV presenting and all that stuff? Because I didn't know that about you. So it's good you brought it up.
Yeah, I don't generally talk about it too much, but it's something that I still do to this day. I still work in TV as I support my music career.
Mm-hmm.
It started, so in about high school, one of my singing teachers had suggested to me that perhaps in university I might want to study media and communications.
Okay.
So I decided to do that, and as soon as I graduated high school, I went into a radio station with my best friend's dad, who was the host of a drive program on a community radio station. And so I went in there and just sat in and then maybe read the traffic or the news. And eventually that turned into me having my own drive time show on a different day of the week.
Okay.
And I was hosting a drive time radio show on community radio for 4 years while I was studying at university.
Okay.
And then as soon as I finished university, I moved halfway across the country to work as a video journalist attached to a radio station. So I'm doing both radio and TV work at the same time.
Yeah.
Then I come back to Sydney and I work in TV for several major TV stations.
Oh, wow.
And I'm still working in TV.
Nice.
And for me,
as a photojournalist?
At the moment, I'm working as more of a producer behind the scenes, which gives me the freedom to then leave and go on tour whenever I want. I don't have the high pressure commitments of someone that's on camera or leading a team. So I've just taken a little step back behind the scenes, but it's just been one big adventure, and I find it so complementary to a music career because I'm now media trained and I create a lot of my own content online. I mean, when I'm hosting a Facebook Live or making a video for my YouTube channel, it's, it's using all those skills that I've learned through being a radio host or being, working in TV. So, I find it's great to have other skills in life besides music that can help you with your music career. Just whatever you're good at, find a way of linking it to what you're passionate about. As well, like if you're great at baking cakes, you could then bake music-themed cakes and use that in your social media to market your music. Like, whatever you're great at, just bring it all together and it'll make you more unique.
Yeah. The one reason why I wanted to detour this way was because that's what I do. That's what I do to support the Live and Amplified thing. Is I'm a creative services producer for ABC affiliate here in Texas. So that I just had to turn left there and see where that part of the conversation went.
Mm.
Um, so you'd kind of touched on it a little bit ago. How has being an on-air personality helped, or how has being an on-air personality changed the way you perform on stage?
It's definitely given me a lot more confidence with talking to the audience and really thinking about what I say to the audience, because a lot of artists don't have that sort of experience on stage, and they will just say, and my next song is this, it's a beautiful song, hope you like it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you're doing 10 songs and that's your intro for every song, that gets a little bit boring.
Yeah. It
So
doesn't excite people. Yeah, I get it.
no, you need to have a bit more of a story to tell people that they can really bite into. And for me, I've been finding my story of being the city girl that moved to the outback and discovered country music out there. That's my narrative that I then talk about on stage. So I'll usually open up with introducing that fact and playing a song that I wrote about Alice Springs, and then I'll come back to that throughout the show. And at the end of the show, I'll end with the song I wrote about leaving Alice Springs. And so it's just, it's a little overarching narrative that then when I go and talk to people afterwards, they're like, oh, you're that girl that lived in Alice Springs. And it's like, yes, hello. Whereas if you're just like, this is my favorite song, it's a great song, hope you like it, it doesn't leave much personality. There's nothing for them to remember you by. So yeah, having a bit of interaction, having a memorable storyline, and stories from the road. Like, I got bitten by a rat on tour, and I love to tell that story about how it snuck under my pillow as I slept, and it bit on my finger, and I woke up but I couldn't find it, so I went back to sleep, and then it bit me again.
Oh wow.
So those are the kind of things that are a bit unexpected, but it works really well on stage. People love to be entertained and hear a story like that. So that's definitely all come from my experience, in radio and TV.
Nice. What's your schedule looking like for what your upcoming shows? Like, this is the big
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely someone to jump at opportunities when they come along. So I think every weekend for the next few months, I'm touring a different part of Australia.
Okay.
Some by myself, some with another artist on tour together. Some are, a big variety show with different artists. So I've got, a bushfire fundraiser for, as you know, the bushfires really hit us in Australia. So I'm involved in a big show in the capital city for that.
Yep.
I'm traveling to smaller towns with another artist who I'm friends with, that we're hitting the road together.
Yeah.
I've got major music festivals that I'm also performing at with my full band as opposed to little acoustic performances. Yeah. So every weekend I'm in a different part of Australia, and I love it. There's nothing better than being on the road and meeting new people and seeing new towns. It's really inspiring, and I feel so lucky that I get to do that as my job.
Yeah. The one of the first musicians we interviewed, actually, I met her through one of the bushfire fundraisers that are going on. I had seen advertisements for, what it was called, Bash for the Bush. I think it was called Bash for the Bush Bushfire Fundraiser. I think it was like the full name of it. And she was one of the musicians that I had talked with after that. So, and she was kind of explaining how everything or how the bushfires kind of impacted everything in Australia, specifically in Sydney. And I think this was the same weekend.
What was the name of this artist?
Bernie Van Til.
Okay, I don't think I know her.
Yeah. And I guess this was like the same weekend that you guys had a really bad typhoon that came through. This would have been like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it wasn't a typhoon. It was a very big storm that then caused a lot of flooding.
Okay.
Which was interesting right after the bushfires. It did help put out a lot of the bushfires, but unfortunately the way that things burn, it meant that everything was loose and weak. So when the floods came, it then caused landslides and
Yeah.
all sorts of tough situations as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And so now like the bushfires under control and like everything's good on that end, or like is there still parts where it's still burning? Like what's the
I'm not 100% sure on
okay.
whether there are any fires still burning,
Okay.
but it is certainly a lot
That,
more under control than
okay.
it was. It was pretty horrific for a long time there. We'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Even in Sydney, like the skies were black during the
Mm,
day because of
yeah.
so much smoke and ash, and it felt like the apocalypse. We'd never
Yeah.
seen anything like
Yeah.
it. But skies are clear now, so
Yeah. That's good.
hopefully
That's
everything's
really good
under
because
control.
I remember when I was watching like some internet news shows, they would always show like the updated view. They would have like B-roll of footage of what was going on there, and it's like, dang, like and that's how I started paying attention to a lot of the fundraisers because I was trying to find ways that I could help because
Mm.
it's like yeah, it was just very devastating even from all, like I'm thousands of miles away and it's not affecting me, but it's like it's affecting a lot of people. So it's
It was really amazing to see, especially from the US. There were
mm,
so many bushfire fundraiser concerts throughout the US and so many donations from
mm,
overseas. I think this was really like the first event of this kind that's
yeah,
got such global coverage, and it is an indication of, a changing climate and
mm,
maybe a sign of what could be ahead if,
mm,
action isn't taken on addressing the way the world is changing. So I think that's why it inspired so many people to
mm,
support it and deal with it, because, this could become a lot more frequent if we don't make any changes and we
mm,
don't have politicians make environmental changes to,
yeah,
avoid this.
mm-hmm. Very true. Um, So, where can people find you on social media? We'll actually wrap this up without going on random side tangents.
I know
Um,
it's so tempting to go on tangents, isn't
yeah,
it?
it is. It really is. Especially when, like I said, just finding out another person in the TV industry. I always love to talk about the industry, and it was
Yeah.
just something that I couldn't let pass. Where can people find you on social media? Where can they find your show schedule? And most importantly, where will they be able to find the music video or as it releases and people start looking for it?
Well, the most important thing to remember is that my name is Dani Young,
Mm-hmm.
Dani. It's the girl version, not the boy. Whenever I tell an American my name's Dani, they're like,
Yeah,
oh, your dad wanted a boy, didn't he?
yeah, yeah,
But no, Dani,
yep,
young as in not old.
yeah,
And if you just type it into Google, you'll find me everywhere. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, I've got a website. You can find my music on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, YouTube. So the music video will be up on YouTube and on my social media platforms as well.
nice.
And we've got some TV stations that are getting behind it as well. So you never know where you might see my music
Yeah,
video pop up. But definitely, if you want to follow my journey, find me online somewhere and connect with me. And yeah, I'd love to share more music with everyone and share all my touring stories. Any more rat bite stories?
yeah,
I'm definitely going to share them with people.
yeah.
So yeah, just look me up.
Awesome, awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me this time. I know you're a busy person. You sure you had a lot of other things going on today, and just wanted to thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to sit down and chat with you.
Thanks
And
for having me. And
oh
I think it's probably my first interview, with someone in Texas.
yeah,
So
nice,
it's very exciting for me as
yeah,
well.
nice.
And yeah, I can't wait for all the Aussie viewers to come on and see what you're all about.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and we've had our eye on Australia for a really long time. It's been one of my bucket list places to come and visit. It's
Mhm.
Sydney, Melbourne, um, it's just been a place I've had my eye on, and we've been trying to figure out a way to make it work. And I think now that I've gotten my head into the 21st century, and it's like, because I had this very hard stance that no, every interview we do has to be in person. has to be face to face. And then I had somebody that wanted to do an interview really bad, and I was like, okay, I'll break the rule. And I started doing the Zoom web conference interviews, and it's like, you know what? It's not that bad. I'm a crazy person. I need to start doing it. Need to start doing this more often.
Well, if you want to come to Australia, I can give you some great recommendation of music festivals you should go to, and then you can interview all those artists in person the way you like.
Yeah. And I don't even know why I like doing it in person, but it's just, it feels more intimate to me. Like it just, it feels
you can
more
definitely
personal.
feel someone's energy and read the body language a lot better as well. But
Yeah.
I don't know, this has been a great conversation too. So nothing wrong with the internet call as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of why I was like, okay, I've just been grumpy about doing internet calls, so I need to stop it. But thank you again so much for giving us this opportunity. Thank you for everybody listening, and we will see you guys next time. Cool. All right. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah,
Uh,
just remember to cut out that bit where we were talking about
yep.
whether it's today or yesterday.
Yep. I got you. Yep. I will make sure I cut that part out. Let me know when you lock down a time for Nashville, because we do need to make another trip to Nashville this year. And we were looking in September, October sometime.
Fantastic.
So if we could try and coordinate those efforts, that would be really cool to try and get you on the jam session part of it, where we do live acoustic recordings and all that fun stuff. So
that would be so awesome. And I was wanting to do a bit of a music history kind of tour. So maybe start in Chicago, then New Orleans, Nashville, Memphis, then over to Texas as well, because I hear great things about Texas.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe Dallas or something.
Yeah, Austin would probably be your best bet, because they really support the independent scene. I'm a little bit more familiar with Austin than Dallas, because Dallas is such a big city. There's just a lot going on there, but Austin seems to support their local artists a lot more. So
cool. Well, I'll definitely stay in touch. I'll let you know when I lock in those Nashville dates, and hopefully it all works out that we can actually catch up in person.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be awesome. And like I said during the interview, I can get you in contact with some Nashville people, because we work with a lot of Nashville artists, and some of them have played at the Bluebird Lounge. So that'd be maybe pick their brains and figure out.
That'd be great.
So
awesome. Right. I'll definitely be taking you up on that.
All right. Awesome.
All right. Well, have a great night. I believe it's like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. for you.
Yep, 10 p.m. And I've got another interview here in about 20 minutes. So.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have a great night.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh,
let me know. Let me know the exact time that you'll be posting our chat, so I can let everyone in Australia know when.
It'll be in about 10 hours. So whatever.
10 hours from now.
Yeah. So it'll be what, like 3
a.m.
3 a.m. for you?
Oh no, that would be 12 hours. 1 a.m.
1 a.m. Okay.
Yeah, that's all right. That sounds great.
Okay. Awesome. All right. You have a good the rest of your day, and I will talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Yep,
Bye.
Bye.